Delighted to have Oded, a close friend of mine here, who I've worked with and I'm probably in daily contact with and annoy daily with my rants and texts on WhatsApp. I see him as a mentor also. I'd love you to tell me and the audience watching about yourself and how did you break into the industry?
Good, yeah. Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. Yeah, you do annoy me on almost a daily basis. um, yeah. So I've been motion designer for about 16 years now. Um, and my break in the industry, it's a bit of a weird. It's like everyone says, it's like who you know, and it kind of is in a way. It's kind of like it's a luck to get in, and then the skills keep you there most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's a very weird story about how I got, not weird, I guess it's like one of every story's beginning is a bit weird, I guess. I used to work as a security guard in a synagogue for a couple of years as like a summer job. And when I was there and I was still in uni, I was still like just finishing my animation degree. And one of the guys said, "Oh, you study animation, you should talk to this guy who comes here a lot." And he introduced me to a guy called Rob Sherman. Rob Sherman dad and brother are the really famous Sherman brothers who wrote all the songs for Mary Poppins, Dumbo, Pinocchio, all of like the golden age of Disney songs.
I didn't know this story. This is unbelievable.
So we started chatting, and he, tried to get into the industry. So he was making an animation movie that I don't think ever went anywhere. To be honest, I'm not sure. But he gave me my first kind of it wasn't really a break, but he gave me a job as like a store-bought assistant. And I say store-bought assistant because all he did was scanning 3,000 hand-drawn images that someone else made and then crop them in Photoshop and make them presentable. So that's where I learned the first one about Photoshop actions, which was very useful. So then I started there, and then it was only like a 3-week job, but he introduced me to the editor. The editor, she introduced me to her husband, and her husband who then worked at a post-production company that doesn't exist anymore, I don't think, called Gorilla Studios. And I got there, and they looked at my reel, and I said, "Can I be a runner? Can I be an intern?" And they said, "Actually, your stuff is pretty decent. Do you want to be a freelancer?" And when they said that, we was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll just freelancer." And they were like, "What's your rate?" And I had no idea. And he was like, "I don't know, £50," because I was a student. I was like, £50 sound like a lot. And then I remember the lovely studio manager said, "Oh, come here, sit with me." And they were like, "What? You've asked him too low." 150 a day. I was like, 150 a day, yeah, sure, sounds lovely. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started into my first. I kind of fell into a freelance career. I've done freelance twice, and this was my first time. And that kind of made me, I kind of did that, and then kind of went to like recruitment agencies and kind of build up. And then for about a year, I did freelance job. Then one of those freelance jobs was at a music studio called Metropolis Studios, who again, I knew from a friend who had a friend who was a sound engineer, and he introduced me to the creative director. And again, it's all about like someone who knows you, who knows you, who knows you, who knows a friend who knows you, and they kind of get you in there. And then again, they like my stuff. So I ended up, I was there freelancing for about maybe 2 or 3 months, just working on Trivial Pursuit. God knows why music studio was doing Trivial Pursuit, but again, they had Hasbro as a client, and I made Trivial Pursuit DVD games. So there was lots of 3D animation within that. I think I made about 300 animations, not to rig all those little characters and do various animations for the questions. So then, I did that for a while, and then I got my first junior job, my first full-time job in Guildford, at that small installation studio. They're doing like big interactive installations, and I was there for a while. And then the contact from the music studio called me and said, "Do you want a job?" And I was like, "Yes." So I dropped the junior job after 10 months of like, I'm joining the music studio. And then I was there for 5-6 years, which was one of the most crazy, amazing jobs I ever had, because it's like, music industry is so crazy.
Was it like baptism in fire?
It was basically like a bit like working in high school, because everyone just doing what they want in a way, because it's crazy, and it's just like you work with incredibly famous artists, um, and in a way, it's kind of a bit like just trying things, because it's like the golden days of DVD
Yeah,
menus. Or like, let's put money into DVD menus and go crazy, do weird shit.
yeah.
So then, yeah, I don't know. Is that answer your question about how I got into? Do you want like a whole
Yeah.
canvas of my career?
No, that's a great like introduction to like, because I think so. You come from an era of design that I was definitely a part of, but I was more fringe. So it was like, there was definitely a part where it was like, "Can I see your CV?" Whereas it sounds like it was just kind of conversation for you, which some of that from my experience definitely was that too. It's like, oh, I know this person who knows this person. He can give you an internship for 4 weeks doing, like, I don't know, run and gun camera and video editing, which I hadn't a clue how to
Yeah,
do. But then there was also that maturing phase of our industry, which we're very much into now, where it's like, can I see your CV? Can I see your show reel? Can I see what you've done? Whereas in the past, it's like, oh, you know how to press buttons on the program. Yeah, you're hired. So
I
that
mean, I
kind of
still I
gives
still
it.
did have a showreel. I still definitely have a
Yeah,
showreel.
of course. Yeah. You have to. But how have you seen the industry? I guess the industry's matured so much since then. And I was speaking to Lara about this in the last conversations. Like, do you miss that wild west of like, let's just try this, where everything wasn't formulaic and we weren't like we were still following rules, but there's definitely more rules, and maybe design feels a bit more sterile now than it used to. Do you think? Or
It's it's weird, because it did feel like a days of a bit of a wild west, a tiny bit. Because again, you have to remember that motion design is a fairly new
yeah,
um, art form in its own way, especially as a commercial thing. Because I look at it, and there are very few people who I don't know, particularly have an older generation to look up to our motion design, which is always a bit scary when you think about it. Because like if you're a graphic designer, you have like people in their 70s, 80s, or 10 before you,
yeah,
50, whatever years before. Motion design doesn't really have that. So we're kind of the first generation, and we have the youngers looking at us at some point when we are like 60, 70 years old. Oh, this is how I'm going to end up as a cautionary tale, or not a cautionary tale. I'm not sure, but
yeah. Hopefully we're not cautionary tales. So what kind of? I
but
guess what part you? Sorry, go ahead.
no, sorry, definitely like there was a kind of a vibe of like just trying things and see what works, and like playing things. And especially again,
Yeah,
because my career in a way, the place I worked was quite weird. Like working in music studio is not your traditional
yeah.
design job. Um, yeah,
Was it less? Would you say maybe less professional is the wrong word? But was it more run and gun, more like expressive? Was there just kind of
yeah,
like, yeah, so you can kind of have more fun? And there's advantages to both, I guess, isn't there? There's advantages to being in an
yeah.
environment where it's just more expressive, and there's advantages to like a more structured. Like, how have you found that transition over time? I'm sure it's been like slowly changing. As you said, motion design's quite new.
Yeah. Um, Again, I think as I matured in my career, I ended up working in more traditional places like agencies, and now work in house. And you definitely, and like in between there was also like a very small marketing agency where I was the only animator. So there was again very a bit of a different vibe.
Yeah.
Um, it does feel, again, I think couple of financial crises here and there. You've been there. It just feels that maybe something people want to play a bit more safe. Um,
Yes.
Kind of a bit more like, don't push the boundaries too much because you might scare people
Yeah. Our clients, for example.
or clients. Yeah, yeah, and also
What?
social media. Like because when I started, social media as a thing didn't really
Oh
exist as a
yeah.
mass marketing thing, and that changed everything.
That did change the whole industry, because I remember I graduated from uni and like social media was just taking off, and I felt motion design became more of a thing when social media took off, because like content was everywhere, like YouTube, like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and what we did became more on demand, I guess, right?
Yeah. but
which
then
is
you're also vying for many people's attention, um,
yeah,
especially in advertising. Like you do an ad, but then it lives on social feed for like 2 seconds and between 20,000 other ads. So that changes the way people want things to look and the time you have to do things.
yeah, that's so true. That's so true. What brought you to London? What was the drive? Was it like uni? Was it like you saw what was being done in London in the industry, or was it like I just want to be in London because it's cool?
Um, yeah, kind of. I came to visit here when I was a teenager, and I did like a tour around England and Scotland, and I loved it. And I always knew I wanted to do something in design since very young. Whether it was like 100 animation or something, I had like many like ideas, but I knew it was to do creative. And I knew I wanted to go to like a big country with big opportunities, and and it had to be obviously an English-speaking country. Despite my dream of like going to Japan and becoming an anime artist, that never happened, obviously. But somewhere in there that might happen one day. It's not. But yeah. So and then London is exciting, and London also is one that it's closer to home than Australia or New York.
Yeah.
So it made sense, and
Yes.
also being queer, being gay is easier here. This is very accepting here. So I was a big part as well as moving to like a big European country.
Yeah, that's an
Definitely
important part.
studying.
Yeah. No, that's I was listening to. This is a bit off topic of motion design, but an ex-colleague we used to work with, Dan Britton, said something very interesting on LBC, called into LBC radio, and he had a conversation about just like creatives and the queer scene and the importance of keeping art integrated into the city of London, specifically music. The topic was about, and that if we don't do that, if we don't keep that culture alive, it'll just be exported. He was saying it's happening in Portugal and stuff, and I tend to agree with that because, like, I mean, London's one of the centers of the world for what we do, but you do get that worry at the moment. It's like I hope that stays it, because it does feel like Barcelona, Lisbon, other parts of the world are definitely clawing some of that, which which would be sad, but it's just the evolution of things, right?
It is. But also you gotta remember that like physical locations don't matter that much anymore. Like especially since pandemic, and that changed how we work. And I can work for some, like you said, I can be here and work for Portugal or work for so the barriers are less there, I think now.
Yeah. I want to jump into a subject which I think we talked about a lot last year. So you became a motion director. How did you find that? You're a very hands-on designer. You love making stuff and crafting things. How was that balance of become a director? How did you find that?
It's kind of interesting because, again, I'm speaking for myself and the people I know around me, but when you're a designer, there is kind of a career path that you think you should follow, and you become it as a designer, senior designer, lead designer, when you step up the ladder. And then at some point you hit a point of like, okay, now what do I do now? Do I stay at this level? Because then the only next level is like head of design or design director. And I was lucky to be able to become head of design at the place where we work together. And I enjoyed parts of it. I love mentoring people. I love sharing knowledge. I love doing that. What I didn't particularly enjoy was the more like admin stuff, resource meeting, budgets and stuff, because that took me away from what I love to do. But again, I thought this is what I should do because I'm of a certain age, and this is the only career path that you can do. You have to go upwards, and upwards is management. Even though you don't really get management training while doing that, you kind of fake it till you make it, and you try to do the best you can. And so I did that for a while, and then I thought, okay, what's the next thing? And I was offered the job as a motion design director, which on paper sounds like a really exciting title because it's a very new title. No one really had a motion design director before. And the idea was like, build a global community, teach, all of that stuff. And again, it was very exciting. But and again, that took me away from because I believe like that a good design director and a good marketing director should still be in the tools, because how are you gonna lead if you don't know how to do the thing?
Yeah.
So it was always a balance of like, I want to keep doing the things, I want to teach, I want to mentor, but then I'm stuck in endless meetings of, resource or budgets, or, you end up, they bring you in just for a bit on fire that you don't have time to fix. And that had a big toll on my mental health and my happiness and overall. And then I sat down with myself and I realized, actually, just because this is where you think you should be, doesn't mean you have to be there. So I kind of took a step back. I said, okay, this doesn't make me happy. And I changed my career. Not changed my career, but kind of changed my position to, I'm now I say back, right? I don't call it back. I say going back to what you love. But what I love is the skills and the craft. Now I'm a lead motion designer, which people are like, oh, are you stepping back? I was like, I don't think I'm stepping back. I'm just focusing on what makes me happy. And maybe one day I will be a design director again in a different environment. That's not like an advertising industry, maybe something smaller, but I can still have an impact.
I think it's a really, so ending on that point that you just made, the environment is key. So a design director, a motion design director in a studio is very different to agency, is very different to even in-house. So if you're part of an in-house company, a marketing team, and they're all very different environments, and the size of those environments matter. I definitely think agency is maybe more admin, and there may be more fires to put out that just come in. But it's that age old thing of like, I guess it's similar to owning a studio in a sense. But like, you're doing all these things, you've got into motion design to be creative, but you're not necessarily, being creative. You're being a manager and running a business, which you never expected to do. And what would your advice be for someone? Because as you said, it's not for everyone. How does someone progress in their career if they find out that that's not for them? How have you found that kind of like realization? And do you have any goals, or do you just kind of wing it like we all do, I guess?
It's a mix. I think once, like, if you get up, you should try, because maybe it is for you. And again, like we say, maybe a different environment, the design director would feel totally different, and it would be like the dream job of your career. Which is why I don't think you should. If you're not happy in one place as a design director, definitely try 2 or 3 more places, because they might be different. Even if they're different agencies, like the people around you are different, the type of work, the process. One place is not the barometer for everything. But if you do it a few times and you realize, okay, this is really not for me, there is zero shame in going back to what you like. Nothing, because you can be a lead designer for the rest of your career, and if you're happy with with the money that you make, you don't have to be mega wealthy and stuff, but it makes you happy and the balance is right. Why not stay there?
There's a lot of very talented designers who become managers, and I feel like we've lost them. If you get that, like, it's and I read it in a book, actually, a guy called Mike Montaro, and he's like, there's plenty of managers out there. There's plenty of people who want to be managers out there. Let them be managers. There's not enough talented designers out there. Don't make them managers, which I tend to agree with that philosophy, for sure. So you've worked in so many different environments, and you've been a director in one of those environments. How would you compare each, like, in-house studio, agency? And I never say one is better than the other, but like, how like, you're gonna have fonder memories of different environments, but like, how would you compare it in terms of chaos and being like mentally prepared for each one?
I think in the nature of what we do, because it's creative, there's always chaos. I think it's what makes the creative place is a chaos. And the bins on the fan, people running around crying or laughing or whatever, and do whatever they want.
Exactly.
This is not an accounting agency, like we're not bankers. So we have to run around.
It's unpredictable.
Terrified every. Where I am now, I will say it's my first in-house job. So again, I only have this as an experience. So far, it's lovely. There's a bit of like, again, coming from agencies where you have so many clients and you think, okay, we don't have this client, but we have that client, and you get to do very different things. To work in-house, we focus on one product. So there's always like, that's exciting and that's really interesting to get really deep into something and, be really passionate about it. But sometimes there's a bit of a fear, like, okay, what happens if this goes away? Like, because there is no like 20 other clients that,
Yeah.
So there's like, ups and downs both, I guess. I definitely, for my current mental health, I think in-house is much better.
Mhm.
I'm happy, I'm more balanced, and I get to be part of a small team where I can wear many different hats. I'm a motion designer, I'm an illustrator, I'm part of the creative team. So, there's
Yeah.
not like just one hat you have to wear, there's many of them, which is really nice. Sometimes in a big agency, as a motion designer, you're only there to push keys and move things around that other people have made or told you to move. So, yeah.
That's quite cool. Yeah. And I definitely think there's I don't want to say snobbery, but there's definitely maybe eyebrows raised sometimes when you tell other like motion designers who are only in studio circles or only agency circles, oh, I'm in house for this company, and maybe they haven't been heard before, and they're like, oh, and it's like this kind of like, oh, you're not pushing yourself beyond 11 o'clock every night doing crazy stuff. It's like I can still make it work and work in house. It's like
Yeah,
it's definitely a more,
there's
there's advantages to that, right? Because you can still be more creative because you're not in that stress as much, I think.
there's a couple of things like this is a very interesting point because a lot of time we chase the big names,
Yeah,
the big
of course.
clients, and which again, it's lovely on their portfolio, it's lovely in the showreel if the work is good, it's lovely on your CV to say you've been trusted by big brands. But if the work doesn't make you happy, if you don't think the work is good, does it matter who it's for? And
Yeah,
on the flip side, even if the client you never heard of, but the work is good quality, does it really matter? And like I'll give you like two
yeah,
examples. Again, the reason I left the music studio, again, I was there for 5 years, amazing people, amazing work, some of my favorite work I did there. But as well, I was saying, music industry, took a big hit with pirating and everything. So there was less and less money to make interesting stuff. And I remember my first two projects I worked for Florence and the Machine and for Blur, both massive names.
so cool.
And just wanted a template and was like, that's it, this is where I'm done because the name doesn't matter anymore. If the work I'm not proud of. And then I moved from there after I was there freelancing after there for like maybe 6 years. And then I had a job at a small B2B marketing agency and I did explainer videos. And again, I fell in love with doing explainer videos. I think it's one of the best things you could do as a motion designer because it really like makes you gives you in charge of like a whole project from storyboard and concepting and character animation, character design, like everything. You can just put in an explainer video. But the clients were like, finance B2B that no one ever heard of. I made some of my favorite work there. So again, names don't matter. Clients, big names don't matter. And what matters is the quality of the work. And people see that.
Yeah, yeah. I guess, yeah, there's an advantage. Of course, there's an advantage having names, but if the
Of course.
names are followed by very hollow work, like it doesn't really matter. And there's plenty of big
It's a
names
balance. It's a balance.
with hollow work, right? Yeah. Would you ever consider going back to freelance in the future? I know it's not on your radar now, but we've had this discussion and I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
Not at this moment in time. Again, we'll see how it goes. I like the stability of a full-time job. I like when I was freelancing again, I did two freelances, one for a year and then another one for like 6 years, very successful 3 years. But I found it again, this was post-COVID as well. So, sorry, pre-COVID. So again, like the working environment were different. Most of the time I worked by myself. I worked at home and I found that very lonely. I missed being around people, around other designers, learning. So I felt like I needed to be around other people. And I didn't always have the opportunity to go to be in a studio with other people. I think 90% of my freelance gigs will work from home by myself. And I also find for myself because I'm quite workaholic when it comes. So I would end up, and there's a fear of like, so I end up saying yes to everything as a freelancer. And I would literally have periods where I would start working at 3 o'clock in the morning, all the way to like 7 in the evening, just to say yes to not lose a client. And that takes a toll after a while. You can do it when you're 25, right? It's like when you're hitting like 30 something, like, okay, I need to go to bed.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And you almost become like you almost get into more of an entrepreneurial cycle when you're as a freelancer. All you think about is the hustle and the work. And sometimes I find the work will even suffer because you just need to get the money in. And
Yeah.
like, so I'm sure you've burnt out then when you've been freelancing. How have you
Oh,
dealt
yeah.
with that? How do you how long does it take? Because sometimes it takes time to realize you've burnt out. Like, how have you kind of discovered that as you've gotten older and more mature with your approach?
I think again, like, burnout is not something we used to talk about. It's a fairly new concept to be open and be okay to talk about it. I come from an environment that was like, and you're lucky to be working in creative. And again, I found out in an interesting way. I found out a bit about like gaslighting thing. We talks about saying you should be lucky to work in creative because other people have dream jobs, normal jobs, and you have your dream job, which means how dare you complain? How dare you burn out?
Yes.
And it took me a while. Like, I had very stressful freelance jobs, and I had a few burnout there, and I had some burnouts when I was head of design, when I was trying to balance both being a designer and head of design. I had a few burnout sessions there. To be honest, because of the way my upbringing, I'm just like, quite resilient. I come from quite a resilient background. So for me personally, it didn't take me long to get back into it. Other people, it takes longer, and there's zero shame in that. You take how long as much you need to take to recover from it. It's not something to brush under the carpet at all.
Yes, yeah. And have you found yourself in situations where you haven't realized you've been burnt out, you keep working, and the burnout compounds?
Oh yeah, because again, I think it's when I was a designer, we were balancing a few really tricky projects, and I didn't realize I was burning out until an account planner slacked me at 7 o'clock in the morning, and again, which I don't think you should ever do. Slacking your work hours. And that really stressed me out, even though the message itself wasn't bad. I just said, oh, let's have a meeting about something. And then we had a chat, and I broke into tears because I was so burnt out. And that was the first time that happened. And that made me like, okay, I'm going to stop working for today. And just turn the computer off and not look at it. Talk to a friend and go for a walk and everything. That really helped me.
That's
and kind of the big thing that I did from that, and as head of design, the next day I had a meeting with the weekly meeting with all the team. And I said it. I said, look, I have burnout, and there's no shame in it. And you think, oh, just because you're a director or creative design, you don't suffer burnout, or everyone has it.
Yeah.
So I think it was good to open up and show the more junior people, the more middleweight people, that it's okay to admit it, and it's okay to go through it. No, it's not okay to go through it. It's okay to realize and admit it, and then walk towards helping yourself.
Yeah, and mitigate. And is there anything you do after those situations to try and mitigate it, like yoga retreats, Japan? more realistic.
Me personally, no. Me personally, no. I just find stepping away, taking the dog out for walks, and again try to, like, because end of the day, burnout or no burnout, I still love what I do, so I still enjoy work. So I came back the next day, but I try to, like, kind of set myself boundaries and say, okay, I realize, okay, now I'm a bit like, getting that vibe again, so I'm gonna step away for a bit, and this isn't the end of the world. Like we always say in advertising, like, we're not saving lives, so like, it's okay.
That's so true. And when you come back so this is the beauty of what we do. So you'll get something, and most of the time the burnout actually doesn't happen because we're making art or we're animating. The burnout happens because of other factors that are leveraged against the work that we do. That's, I think, where the burnout comes from. But when you step away and you're not putting innate pressure on yourself, and you come back, there is this joy you get, like, back in your body of, I'm making something, I'm crafting again. And you actually, that never goes away. That never lessens for me. Have you found that when you give yourself that space, you come back, it's like, oh, I really do love what I do?
I do. And again, I can't say that every day I enjoy everything that I do, because, we all have boring project, and, you're not always in charge of the kind of, especially as a designer, not always in charge of the look and feel of what we get to work with, because we're not the brand, so like, if you get a client that the brand you don't like, you still have to work with it.
Yeah.
What I found, like, for me, that helps. Even if I have like a string of like projects that for me I found not interesting, I try to bring a bit of myself into it, like finesse the curves a bit more, or like introduce a bit of, a 3D or something that like wasn't there before. Even if
Yeah.
just for even if it's a failed attempt, even if like someone sees it but it doesn't go ahead, I still tried it.
Yeah, yeah. You set yourself like little challenges to
Yeah.
integrate into your work, which is quite cool. That's cool. And what is it about? So you mentioned mentoring, and I definitely know you are an amazing mentor for so many people and have been. What is it about it that you enjoy? Because everyone's different, right? What do you get from it?
I really enjoy the attention. I'm joking. I enjoy sharing something with someone and seeing them get it. That aha moment on their face is such a joy.
That's cool.
To see someone when they make when they take emotion thing that they've done and elevate it because of the sessions we have, and they're happy about it and they say, okay, now I understand. That's such a fulfillment thing.
That's really cool. And like, when was it in your career trajectory that you realized that? At what? Because obviously, it takes a while to become a mentor and have a mentee. But like, how deep into your career was it when you had that first moment?
It was fairly late again because with the place we worked together, part of the career path to move up was for you to kind of take care of other people, like
Yeah,
middleweight and marginal people. And I started doing that. And because even before people would come to me like, say, oh, how would you do this? How would you do that? And I really enjoy doing that. And I really enjoy like walking around and seeing what people are doing, saying, oh, have you tried this? Have you seen this? It's really cool. So I kind of fell into it. When I started having these sessions with people, and again, I found like the joy of like sharing knowledge and supporting people, even like through tough times, or like, a lot of designers, they focusing on their craft and less on the design thinking. And I really love helping
yeah,
when people think about design, not just like make the design. And so I did that. And then at my next job, there was an actual mentoring program where they actively asked people to mentee people within work. So I think I had like 8 or 9 people, the height of like my mentoring, my previous place. And then I also did volunteer mentoring outside of work for an organization called Advertising, which is kind of a volunteer agency for volunteer organization for LGBT people in the advertising industry. So I was paired up with a middleweight motion designer. And again, we met every 2 weeks, and that was a lot of joy to do that.
that's amazing. That's very cool. And so, like, what have you got any inspiration from other artists about mentoring, or like what artists do you like? Is there, where do you find your just general inspiration from as an artist?
I'm gonna say like there's a few studios that everyone knows and love. Like everyone knows back amazing.
Yeah, of course.
There's like a few studios that kind of stick in my head, like Oddfellows, Shota Papa, How They Were, Golden Wolf. Last Studio, Alan Last, I've been a fan of his for many years. Ariel Costa, Bleed My Brain, the amazing collage artist, Ed Croucher, Daniel Fisher Shin, and lots. And I also look at a lot of like graphic designers, like and illustrators that I love. So like not just motion design, all art forms really.
And like, is there anything outside of art that has inspired your work? Like any hobbies, any activities, anything you've done in your personal life that maybe you didn't realize was an inspiration, maybe in your personal work or your, professional life, that you've just taken in by osmosis, let's say?
Not really, because this is just me, but because I enjoy what I do, so even my hobbies, for right or for wrong, I try to incorporate them to work somehow. If I draw something, again, like I'm a budding illustrator. I wouldn't say I'm a professional illustrator. I'm still would say that I'm trying to find my style. I mean, I can draw, I can look at something and I can copy it very well. But to have my own style, that's something I'm still developing. That still takes a while. And, so that in itself hasn't come into work, my own style of illustration, except one project last year. So I try to do that. I love drawing patterns. I found that very therapeutic since I discovered Procreate and iPad and Symmetry tool.
So cool.
It's a very, very relaxing. And again, it's something that's so different to what I do, just showing patterns, but I found it very therapeutic.
When you're trying to define your style, and this is something I struggle with massively, what do you think it takes to have a style? Is it the discipline of doing the same thing over again? Or is it just exploration? Is it a little bit of trying to find a balancing act? It's something I've always struggled with because I'm just throw paint on a canvas kind of person. What steps have you taken to try and find your style?
It's a very interesting question because I don't think I still have that. Even though what I usually like, I don't think I have it, but people look at my work and say, I can see your style in it. So in a
Yes.
way, it's quite an interesting juxtaposition because I don't always agree with them. But if people are honest and I can see your thing in it, your style, then okay, maybe there is something there. I find it, again, it's difficult because illustration is new to me, but we didn't used to have so many ways of absorbing inspiration. Instagram came
Yeah.
up and like all of this stuff, and all of a sudden you can see so much, and it's incredible,
Yeah.
but it's also can make you lose yourself a lot because you think,
Yes.
one, you see so many people doing very, very similar things, and you think, okay, how do I stand out? Is it possible to stand out even
Yes.
where you think, oh, I'm going to do cute characters, but then there's about 50,000 amazing other illustrators who also do cute characters, and you start seeing like, okay, everyone's kind of inspired by very similar things, and so it's very hard sometimes to say, okay, not to get lost in that giant crowd. So I say
Yeah.
sometimes just like, okay, even if you think what you're doing is similar, just still do it because just we don't do it for the likes, even though a lot of us do it for the likes and the attention and the and it's a battle of like, if I have to post it and I have to have all these likes, otherwise I'm not valued.
Yeah.
That's a big battle. It always is a big battle, still is.
It's a massive battle. It kind of goes back to my thing. It's like I've commented in the last 6 months. I've wondered, we haven't. It's not sterilized, but there's definitely a sense of me as like, have we lost that? Like, remember, like, do you remember Newgrounds at all? Newgrounds. It was like a Flash animation game website. It was just chaotic. It was like the weirdest work ever. All these games and websites made in Flash, and it was very
Yeah.
hard to find something that looked the same. Because, like, when I say like, yeah, you'd find similar stuff, but it was very hard to find something that had the same maybe idea or had the same look. And I do wonder, it's like you go on Instagram, do you think there's a bit of sterilization there? I don't necessarily blame agency culture, but maybe it's just we're seeing the same stuff over and over again. So are we inclined to copy that?
I think so. And again, I think it goes on to like what we were saying, of oversaturation, because again, we see so much. How can we not be
Yeah.
influenced by it? How can we not subconsciously just be there all the time saying, oh, here's 30 things today, here's 16 you saw yesterday. How could that not influence your work? I think it's impossible.
Yeah.
While back in the Flash days where we didn't have so much stuff to look at, we just let the imagination do things. And this is coming from the days of like, badger, 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 and that song, and
Yeah, I remember that. That was
Charlie,
sick.
Charlie the Unicorn, and all of that. Like spoons,
Yeah.
rusty spoons.
Yeah,
Are fine.
yeah, they're nuts. You've never seen, but that's my point. Like they don't look necessarily nice, but we were drawn to them because of how artistically weird they were. And we'd never see that now. No one would send salad fingers today. I mean, it just wouldn't happen.
No,
Which is kind of sad, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But would you hire rusty spoons as the designer in your agency? I don't know.
No, but you definitely have a pint with them
Oh, sure, yeah.
to pick his brain. Yeah, there's definitely maybe there's an inspiration epidemic going on. How do you get that balance? Like, how do you stay off Instagram? Do you limit your time? Do you care? Do you just use it when you think about it? Like, is that something you think about much?
I do. I take like days off. Don't look at it, and but then I crave it because like I need to see what's out there, and there's always this fear of like the fear of being left behind and missing a trend or missing a tool, and especially nowadays, I like don't want to miss anything. I think I've accepted the fact that I will always have voices in my head that always fight with each other, like, oh, don't look at it, look at it, don't look at it, look at it. So like it's fine. That's my personality. It's what it is.
You're just human, like the rest of us, just fighting with yourself constantly.
Yeah.
What are your like? So I personally think doing personal work is like, I don't ever want to put pressure on people who watch, or watch these discussions, but I do think personal work is almost a requirement, to grow as an artist. Have you found that to be the case, and how have you found the time to do personal work in the past?
I think I tried to, because I realized that I'm a busy person. I still want to enjoy my personal life, do other things. So if I do personal projects, I try not to make them too big. Like smaller things, like illustration, or like very rarely that I'll do an actual animation outside of work, even I like doing it because it takes so long. And so it's just don't want to keep staying at the computer. So I love working on an iPad. It takes me away from the computer screen. It takes me away from the laptop.
That's great.
Actually, recently, like iPad have Procreate Dreams, and Nomad, like so many amazing tools that just takes you away from the main working machine and stepping away and kind of feels a bit like a hobby again, which is really, for me, it's really nice.
Do you find it more social to do it that way? That's so interesting. Like you could almost be in the park and just be doodling, watching Netflix and doodling. Is that kind of how you?
Yeah, I've done that. Or just literally just sat on the sofa and doodle, like stepped away from not looking at the monitor.
Yeah, and so when you say it's a big thing, does it become overwhelming that you're in that kind of workspace for too long, or do you feel it's just an unhealthy thing for you because of the past of getting burnt out and working at 3 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah, there is that. And again, I think there is the element of like, yes, personal work is amazing and I love it, but because I spend most of my day doing motion graphics, which I enjoy, I don't particularly crave to do personal work for myself. If it has to be different. It has to not be motion. It has to be, like I say, joint patterns, or like recently I'm trying to get into 3D printing, which is this little guy, which is really cute, and that's a very, very different process, because you go from like sketching to 3D modeling to printing, and then it's very like hands-on. You sand, you paint, you refine things, and that's a very off monitor kind of thing. And it's a very nice thing to see something you design on screen being physically in your hand. That's really rewarding.
That's so. I listened to a podcast with Ash Thorpe and Albert Olmos like years ago, and Albert Olmos said on the podcast he got into woodwork because he wanted to make something physical, because he felt, as we discussed earlier, that what we make is so disposable that if you're actually making something physical, there's a sense of like, I have this thing that I can show someone and hand it to them. Doing those kind of side avenues, they still help your day to day, right? Like,
for sure.
Like you still learn about 3D, you still learn about illustration, you still learn about patterns and composition, right?
Yeah, everything I do, if it's personal, somehow I try to always bring it into work. 3D printing, I'm not sure I'm going to bring it into work. We'll see, but maybe not. But aspects of it, learning new 3D skills or doing different things, that definitely I always try to bring that into work. Again, because I love what I do, I try to make that as part of my joy. And part of my joy is trying to bring my own personality, my own skills into the work itself.
That's quite cool. Yeah. What advice would you give Oded of 10 years ago? What would be the thing you tell Oded 10 years ago? Or even just before they got that job, what was it when you were doing security, just before you started, what would you say to Oded then? It could be a number of things. It's just to be one thing.
That's a very good question. I guess it's like don't be scared to experiment. I think it took me a long time to realize that I'm driven by fear. And that sounds really negative, but I don't say that. I'm driven by fear of being left behind, which forces me to look at things and try new tools and try just be inspired, not be stuck in the style that I like, because there's other stuff so that you should try, and there's other tools and new ways of thinking. So I think just maybe the advice would be just to embrace that earlier. Even though I think it was always there, but I never realized it. I always thought it as a negative, but it's not a negative. Not if you harness it properly.
And what kind of tools, what's your fear at the moment of, like, obviously it's to be left behind, but what areas do you not fear, because we don't all use, but what areas are driving you? What are you interested in? Where do you want to go?
Technology moves so fast, and again, I think everyone's talking about AI. And I mean, we know that everyone's talking about AI, and we can talk about that subject for hours. It's a whole different conversation.
Yes,
that throw our whole industry, or almost any industry, to complete unknowns. Like, we don't know. 5-10 years ago, we could say roughly, okay, you can kind of see where you can be in 10-20 years. Now it's impossible. It might be good, it might be bad. We have no idea. We're all in this together. We're trying to figure shit out by ourselves.
Yes.
And I think even like more traditional sound, like the tools, like when we started, we only had After Effects. Now there's After Effects, there's Cavalry, there's Blender, there's Cinema 4D, there's like all of the stuff which all do incredible things. And it's as you get older, I sometimes find it's quite difficult to want to figure out what you need to focus on, because you spend time learning something and then actually do you really need to use it? Is that the thing? Should have you focus on something else? That's a big scary thought, because well, I thought, okay, maybe I'll try creative coding. I tried, I failed, not for me. Even I found the logic interesting, it didn't click. And you think, but actually, even if I do learn it, am I actually going to become a creative coder? I don't think so. So should I keep doing it, even though like it's somewhat interesting? So it's kind of trying to pick and choose out of all the things that interest you, because our designers are probably so many things that are useful at the same time. We're drawn to very shiny things all the time, like magpies. It just, what's picking the shiny thing that fits for you? That's always a struggle.
Yeah. And it's better to try something and realize you don't want to do it than think about the thing you want to try and never do it. Which is cool. You tried the creative coding and go, not for me. Because what we do in our heads, and I'm sure you've done this, is you romanticize the idea of being a creative coder before you even try it. And then you try it, it's like, no, this isn't romantic at all.
Exactly.
And I guess what skills did you take on and you were like, I actually like this, I didn't think I would? Is it like 3D or maybe a type of character animation? Was there any skills you took on, you're like, I really love this, I didn't think I would?
Yeah, it's kind of just because I did not want to do motion graphics. I only found out at uni because they were doing different modules, because I did a degree in design for interactive media and digital animation. That included a lot of like, this is going to show people how the macro media director, like machine interactive 3D ROMs, and which is a completely dead thing now. So there's no point.
Yeah.
But there was a module of motion graphics and that kind of clicked. But especially 3D, because we talk about 3D a lot, and a lot of jobs are out there seeking more, and they say 3D is a nice to have. I don't think it's a nice to have anymore. In my opinion, you have to have 3D as part of your motion skills, because it adds so much. And I will forever be grateful for my dad. Many, many years ago, my dad was always into computers and everything. And I think when I was 19 or 20, he saw a course for Studio Max. And he said, do this course before you go to university, do it, because it's really good. Even though he didn't really, I don't think he had exactly the clue what it is, but he knew like 3D animation is a thing that, there's movies, there's Pixar, all that. Like, this is a good thing to try and learn. And I will forever be grateful for doing that month's course in Studio Max, because that really made me fall in love with 3D. And then I changed
That is,
you go with the times. I changed to Cinema 4D, and I'm trying Blender these days. But the love of 3D, seeing the potential of it within motion graphics. I'm not a professional 3D, like I don't model like realistic stuff. Like I find the 3D that fits within motion graphics for me, but it added so much.
that's I've seen recently. I think it was on Joey Corman School of Motion Design. He mentioned a thing called a full stack motion designer, which is just blows my mind. It's like a full stack developer. It's like Houdini, like scripting in Python and After Effects, Calvary. It's like, and that got me scared. So I was like, shit, like what, like, and that I think what you said there earlier, the fear is actually an important tool. Like if you're not in fear, you're going to stagnate. You're not going to, I'm not saying like, obviously you don't want to be afraid of losing your job all the time. You want to be afraid of not having the skills that keep you relevant, I guess. Yeah, and that 3D course story, that is so cool. How old were you when your dad said to you on that course?
I think it was 20. So very young.
And were your parents I guess your parents then were quite supportive of you going down a creative route?
Yeah, very supportive. Always very, very supportive of me. My dad drew as, a younger man, and my mom had a creative flair. She ended up as like a technical sketch, like she would do like technical drawings for like companies for one. So art was always in my house. Even though I didn't think I could draw, and I found that I could draw when I was 12, just randomly.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're always very supportive, and I love them forever for supporting me moving country, which is very difficult when your parents like to realize, okay, let your kid go and do their own thing, and
That's awesome. It's brilliant. And so you were quite creative as a kid, and obviously they encouraged that, which is amazing. So did you draw a lot as a kid? Did you do like anything else as a kid that was quite creative that you, looking back now, is like, oh, maybe that did have an influence on me?
The drawing definitely had an influence on me. I only found out I could draw, just quite again a funny story. I was quite a big fan of Michael Jackson, like all the kids back in like the 80s and the 90s. I saw someone.
People that have their calculators out now, and they're just doing the 3ds Max course.
Yeah, it's very easy to figure out how to learn. Ben, I was like, had one of those teen magazines in the back. Someone was selling, I'm selling fan art of Michael Jackson. I said, Mom, can I buy one? And she said, no, do it yourself. She had no idea I could draw. I didn't know I could draw. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to prove you and try. And I realized, okay, yeah, I could actually copy someone's face on paper and do it. That's turned on, drawing and, doing art and trying different modes of art, like, classical painting and stuff like that.
That's cool. That's quite cool. So you kind of had a decent background in being creative before you got into it, which is, I think, always advantageous in a sense. I think for some people, if they don't have at least one parent supporting them, it's a bit of a struggle. But yeah. There were some amazing stories. Thank you for coming on and sharing your journey and your advice. What, I guess, to end this on a cheesy note, what advice would you give to up and coming designers, illustrators, motion designers, especially with all the AI stuff? What would you say to them?
I would say it's okay to be scared, because everything is so unknown to all of us. Like, just because someone's older than you and been around longer doesn't always mean that they know what they're talking about or that they have all the answers, even though they want you to think they do, but they don't. So I would say, be curious. Really don't be afraid of failure. Embrace the fear of trying things, embrace the fear of, being left behind, because that's going to, kick you up the ass every day. I said, okay, I'm going to try this and I might fail, but it's okay. And this is still going to try to give myself advice. Don't do everything for clout. Don't do everything.
Yeah.
Don't see yourself as a failure if you don't get a like. So if I didn't even post, it's fine. It's not about that. And that's something that the younger generation, we grew up in an environment of you have to post. You're validated only because you have likes and followers and all of that. And that sometimes takes away from the art and the joy of it. Like me and my friends talk about, like, we haven't drawn for fun for ages. We draw because we want to post and get the likes, and it doesn't have to be that. We try and like find that.
It's okay to leave stuff on your hard drive and not post it.
Yeah. And not everything you do has to be amazing. Not sure.
Yes. So true. Thank you so much for joining. It was great to have you.
Pleasure.
Maybe we might bring you back with Laura and the other crew sometime. It would be fun.
Please do that. Panel discussion would be super fun. Please do that. It'll be chaos, but be great chaos.
Cool.